Somewhere right now, there's a man with a genius-level IQ, multiple degrees, and a job that pays him extremely well and almost nothing saved. And somewhere near him, there's a coworker with an average IQ, an average resume, who quietly has more money in the bank than he does. If you assumed the smarter person is automatically the richer person, the actual research on this is going to surprise you. This isn't a motivational story, it's a data problem. And once you see the mechanism behind it, you'll understand why some of the most intelligent people in modern financial history, including two literal Nobel Prize winners, ended up in the same trap.
Today, I'm walking through 3 specific reasons the data shows high IQ people don't reliably end up wealthier, and I'm saving the most expensive one for last, because it's the reason 2 Nobel laureates lost over $4.5 billion in about 5 weeks. Here's the image to hold on to for the rest of this video. Intelligence is an engine. It's raw horsepower. It helps you learn faster, solve problems faster, earn a promotion faster. But an engine doesn't steer. It doesn't decide when to brake, when to turn, or when the road ahead is about to disappear. Every reason on this list today is really the same story. A powerful engine with nobody firmly holding the wheel.
Reason 1. Intelligence buys you income. It does not reliably buy you wealth. In 2007, economist Jay Zagorski published research using a massive U.S. government survey that has followed the same group of Americans for decades. He found that each additional point of IQ was linked to roughly $200 to $600 more in yearly income. That part matches what most people assume. But when he ran the same analysis on total net worth, actual accumulated wealth, the relationship basically disappeared. Statistically, it was almost impossible to tell high IQ people and average IQ people apart by their bank balance. Higher income, same wealth. That gap is the whole video. And it gets stranger. That same research found that higher IQ did not reliably lower someone's odds of maxing out a credit card. We'll come back to exactly why in a minute, because the explanation connects directly to a $4.6 billion mistake made by some of the smartest financial minds who ever lived. Reason 2. Intelligence doesn't automatically translate into saving behavior. The researcher behind that original study said something important. His data couldn't fully explain why smart people weren't ending up wealthier, only that it pointed toward one likely culprit. They simply weren't saving more of the extra money they were earning. Think about what that actually means. The advantage shows up on the income statement, not the balance sheet. More coming in, but not necessarily more staying. If nobody is steering that extra income into savings or investing, a bigger engine just means you get to your financial problems faster. If this is the kind of thing that changes how you think about money, that's exactly what this channel is for. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Reason 3, and this is the one that does the most damage. Researchers who study intelligence and decision-making, most notably science journalist David Robson, whose work reviews decades of psychological research on this exact question, argue that smart people can actually be more prone to a specific kind of overconfidence. Not overconfidence in general knowledge, overconfidence in their own judgment, specifically when things start going wrong. If you've spent your whole life being the person who's usually right, being told you're wrong stops feeling like information and starts feeling like an attack. So instead of updating the plan, intelligent people are, in some documented cases, more likely to double down because their brain is very, very good at building a convincing argument for why they're still right. That skill is usually an asset. In a losing financial position, it can be the exact thing that turns a bad month into a bankruptcy. I want to be fair here. This isn't a universal law, and plenty of the research is more nuanced than a single headline can capture. But the pattern shows up often enough and dramatically enough that it has an actual case study attached to it, a famous one. In 1994, a hedge fund called Long-Term Capital Management was founded by a legendary bond trader. It didn't stay a normal hedge fund for long. It recruited some of the most respected minds in finance and economics, including Myron Scholes and Robert Merton, who in 1997 won the actual Nobel Memorial Prize in Economic Sciences for their work on pricing financial risk. This wasn't a couple of lucky guys. This was, on paper, the most intellectually stocked trading firm in the world. And for a few years, it worked. Returns of 21%, then 43%, then 41%. Then, in 1998, a debt crisis in Russia produced market conditions their models had essentially treated as almost impossible. The fund didn't slowly decline. It lost roughly $4.6 billion in about 5 weeks. The situation got so serious that the Federal Reserve stepped in and organized more than a dozen major banks to put together a bailout, not to save the fund's investors, but because regulators were worried its collapse could drag down the wider financial system. The people running the numbers were, by any measure, some of the most intelligent people in the room. That was never the problem. The problem was believing the model couldn't be wrong because they were the ones who built it.
Come back to the image from the beginning. Intelligence is the engine. It gets you promoted. It gets you the higher salary. It lets you build the complicated model in the first place. But somewhere along the way, that same horsepower can convince you that you don't need a steering wheel, that you're smart enough to see the wall before you hit it. The data doesn't say smart people can't build wealth. It says intelligence alone was never the part of the system responsible for that job. Saving consistently, staying humble about your own blind spots, and being willing to be told you're wrong, that's the steering. And none of that shows up on an IQ test. If you want more breakdowns like this, where I take the actual research instead of the motivational poster version of it, subscribe and tell me in the comments, do you think this pattern shows up more in income or in how people invest? I read every comment. See you in the next one.